Hello, welcome. Very nice to be here. This is more or less part 2 of the place where we started last week. We were talking about dimensions and how they worked and how they played into your reality and how you can begin to change your reality by understanding how these dimensions really play out. It's not too complicated, but one of the key components to this is present time, being in present time. So we'll talk about time here because there's many applications of time. But going back to last week, if you would, we talked about third dimension, the space that mostly we all walk around in where we understand ourselves, engage with people. And in that aspect of this third dimensional space, what we perceive as a truth and a fixed concept is linear time. Past, present, future, and then you die. In that space also, there is a moment of present time, that past present time moment. But in third dimension, present time is very different than all the other aspects of present time. So effectively, we'll talk about 4 or 5 different aspects of present time. But in third dimension, because you don't think about time, it's just a given. We just treat it as part of life. We wind up don't paying attention to it. But in that third dimensional space, because of the other characteristics of the dimension, now remember last week I said dimension is like a box. Each dimension is a box for the purpose of this. And each dimension has its rules and its structures. So third dimension is this linear time. Third dimension has duality, the good, the bad, the right, wrong, should and shouldn't. Third dimension is conditional. There is nothing unconditional in third dimension. There is no unconditional love in third dimension. That starts in a fourth dimensional place we'll play in a minute. But in that context of conditionality and good and bad and judgments, in the context of time, we spend a great amount of our time in the past and in the future. In fact, probably about 98% of your experience is directed by what you did in the past and how you hope it will not happen or will happen in the future. It's one of those things where you say, oh no, that's not right. I'm in present time all the time, a person would say in this context of the conversation. But once you begin to get into a fourth dimensional present time, fourth dimension, in this case present time, is where you also have choice to, in the moment, choose how I wish to experience myself. Whereas in third dimension, present time is reactionary. So kind of the first aspect of present time is this third dimensional reactionary moment where something is happening and your response is, oh no, this isn't supposed to happen. You're in present time, but it's a reaction to kind of what you're doing. As you begin to play more in fourth dimensional present time, fourth dimension is a place you live in all the time also, but you don't necessarily pay attention to fourth dimensional space because fourth dimensional present time is somewhat quiet. It is, choice is available in fourth dimension. What would you like to have for dinner? Well, let me think about it. I would like. That's a present time experience. Now remember, time is the key piece here. Time drives everything. You know, in the third dimension, in their experience, we think money drives everything. It's not money, it's time. You are a construct of time, and I'll try to explain that over the next few minutes. But in this fourth dimensional space of present time, where you have choice, a number of things happen to you. You are aware, but you're also in motion in fourth dimensional present time. It's as if, what would you like to have for dinner? It's like, well, let me think about this. I could have, or I might have, or there's a movement to that. It's as if you're leaning into your future decision. Well, yesterday I had, I think tonight I would like. So there is an aspect of past and future in the decision of fourth dimensional present time. Now, why this is important to kind of just hear, don't try to figure it out, just kind of hear this, is in that fourth dimensional present time space where you have choice, you also begin to have an aspect of awareness. You begin to say in choice, I could do this or I could do that. But when you begin to get into that space of choice and observation, you also begin to have awareness in aspects of what's going on in and around you, what might be possible that you didn't notice in that reactionary state just a couple of minutes ago. As you begin to get into this place of present time, fourth dimension, choice, you also have another characteristic in fourth dimension that is very, very valuable. Funny word, paradox. Paradox simply means what was true a moment ago may not be true this moment, and what was false may not be false again. What happens in that space, it allows you to step out of words that are in the third dimension, like always and never. I'm never going to be smart, I'm never going to be good, she's always going to be bad, there's no hope for him because he always does this thing. There's total rigidness in that word, always or never. When you can begin to get into a place, and you have this experience, often or seldom, depending on how you perceive it, but in fourth dimension choice, you begin to recognize that that feeling I have of not being okay, that gift somebody gave me once upon a time that said, you're not okay, you don't deserve, you're not attractive, you don't fit, you're never going to succeed. I don't know why I had you in the first place. Those are really harsh words that somebody else hands you, and we accept them as a gift, and then we walk around for the rest of our life asking the question, what's wrong with me? Nothing's wrong with you. You can't be not okay. But in the context of somebody else's gift that you're holding, you're trying to figure out what you did wrong. So that space is kind of locks in, what did I do wrong, locks in the linear time construct, past and future. But when you can begin to take a breath and step back and allow yourself this present time fourth dimension, where you have choice, you can actually begin to look at some of these things that has happened in your life and realize this really has no meaning to my life. It has no value in my life. It doesn't even make sense in my life, but I keep carrying it around in my backpack. Because of that pause in present time in fourth dimension and the ability to recognize paradox, what I used to think was true, maybe it's not. You have an aspect of flexibility that does not exist in the third dimension walking around space. Now, if you really step back and kind of look at people walking around, not from a judgmental standpoint, but you basically look at how people live their life, very mechanical, very rote, same thing with very little variation in it, day in and day out, always and never. This is what I am, this is how my life works. But that's not how life works. And many people are now stepping into a space where that status quo of their life is about to be very, very interrupted. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a couple of minutes. But these new waves of light that are moving through the earth, through you, through the galaxy, through the solar system, are very disruptive, not from the standpoint of being damaging or creating a problem. In fact, very much the opposite. They're moving through you to clean away the I'm not okay because you've never been not okay. But we walk around with kind of a shirt that's too small and shoes that don't fit, and we say, well, I'm okay, I'm okay. Well, no, you're not. Your shoes are too tight. In this case, fourth dimensional present time allows you the ability to begin to choose something different. For many, you're going to be sitting there going, well, I know all that. Okay, I know that. But it's really not about knowing it. It's about recognizing it, understanding it, and then applying it, choosing a different thought, choosing a different emotion with a thought. I'm uncomfortable. Okay, well, be uncomfortable, but don't bring that same emotion, that is, I'm not okay, along to the thought of I'm uncomfortable. What if you could say, I'm uncomfortable and I'm okay? Or what if you could just choose a different emotion to connect to that thought? Now, as we begin to play here, and I'm talking to a lot of people who are new to this, and there's quite a few people on this call, you have choice in this space that is in the process of being disrupted. So when you begin to step into an awareness of choice, you also begin to have an opportunity to rearrange how you hold yourself. Meaning, if you hold yourself in I'm not okay and walk around with that, to a great extent it's like carrying a very large billboard that says I'm not okay. And there's a lot of people who like to make other people not okay. And so that billboard, guaranteed, attracts a lot of attention. What if you could change the message on the billboard? What if you could basically begin to have a sense of yourself that is certain and capable and comfortable and aligned and gracious and senior, as in this is who I am, a sense of seniority. When you begin to choose fourth dimensional time, a different configuration of energy to live, you begin to actually step into a whole nother aspect of present time. Remember, there's lots of layers to present time. Time, if you think about it in this context, it's very much like a rainbow. There is no particular definitive line between yellow and orange or blue and green. It just more or less morphs, blends into one and then the other. Time is really very much like that here. But when you can begin to understand that it's an application for use, you're going to find that there is some really very extraordinary things that allow you to rearrange your entire reality and have a very different experience. So, recognizing choice as a present time opportunity in fourth dimension, you begin to have a chance to step into a fifth dimensional space. Now, fifth dimensional is very broad and it goes very deep. And in fifth dimension, the rules and the structures and the characteristics change quite a bit. So it's as if the quieter you get in a way, and I'll say this again in a minute, the more expansive opportunity do you have to what you're experiencing, what you're participating in. So as you begin to change your sense of yourself, when you begin to make a decision that I am okay, and in present time I can choose emotions and thoughts that allow me to enjoy myself rather than worry about how my experience in my day goes, you're going to find new billboard. I'm okay, I'm attractive, I'm having fun, I like myself. There's a whole lot of people that like people who are like them. And so you're going to find an entire new grouping of people that begin to come into your reality. Now this is the mechanics of how these dimensions play out when you choose from this space of present time. But when you begin to step into this fifth dimensional aspect of present time, something else happens. There's a part of you that is constantly, third dimensional particularly, there's an anxiety or a worry or an uncertainty or a place where you're not sure what's going to happen next. In that third dimensional space, fourth dimensional also to a great extent, what we do is we depend upon the external world to tell me I'm okay. Do I look good today? Do you like my shirt today? Am I succeeding? Here's my business card. Does my title appeal to you? Can you see that I'm successful because? Much of that sense of ourselves is directly related to how we ask the external world to validate us. But in real terms, in that third dimension, that nature of looking for external validation somehow keeps us off balance. Because 6, 7, 8, 10 people would say, nice shirt. And then somebody says you look better in green. And all of a sudden you throw the shirt away. So no, I would never do anything like that, but we know people do things like that. In that process, as you step into that fourth dimensional present time, you do get quieter. You do begin to have a sense of yourself. Something begins to happen in the heart. You begin to have this sense of yourself. And there's a level of appreciation. Oh, it sneaks in, but it's there. I like me. I did that good. I was successful. Nobody told me I was successful. I know I was successful. I set out to do X. I succeeded. That internal expression of yourself is something that's extremely important in the stepping process where we're going. And as these 3 new waves of light come in, being able to validate yourself and be one with yourself is going to be the name of the game. But we're not there, so there's going to be a lot of disruption in the process of moving from 3rd dimension to 5th dimension. But here's one of the characteristics of that 4th dimensional present time. I said it just a minute ago. It's the space where I'm leaning into the future. Now let me think about this, we say, and it's almost like your body leans as you put your attention into the future to figure out what you want to do. The figure out part is fine, but the leaning part is the difference between a 5th dimensional present time and a 4th dimensional present time. And in a minute I'm going to use the word gravity, which will be very strange in relationship to this. But that lean has a lot to do with how you hold yourself in a sense of not okay, or the heaviness of things, the doubt, the worry. So the leaning is a habit. How is this going to work? I wonder what I should do. Am I going to do this right? You're in present time making choices, but that lean is a part of the 4th dimensional present time. As you step into 5th dimension, well-being, happy, appreciation, gratitude, a sense of your own seniority, one of the things that happens is as you choose, as you recognize yourself, here I am, in that present time, it gets quiet. You choose from a place of balance. You don't lean. You don't need. You don't have any hesitation. You don't self-judge. You don't question your decision. You're just kind of pondering. You're curious. Okay, I think I can make this work this way. In that space, something very extraordinary begins to happen. When you, 3rd, 4th dimensional space, lean into your future, need the external world for validation, you're actually using a structure that isn't about you at all. But when you begin to get into this 5th dimensional space and choose, you start to move from going away from yourself to find you, going away from yourself to get validation, to get approval, to know you're okay, to being able to stand in your own space, and everything switches. You begin to get quiet in certainty, and the world comes to you. Everything comes to you. There's no reason to go out there. The answer lies where the question is asked. Everything comes to you. Now that begins to be really kind of extraordinary, because a lot of the edge just goes away. You start having success. Things come to you. This is working. I'm enjoying myself. I'm not stressed. I'm not putting so much thought into this. Things just start to come. Now, this point is absolutely very valuable, because as this world begins to move into a significant transition, meaning you can't take your baggage with you. You can't continue in the world of greed and domination and in imposition and advantage and competition. Those 3rd dimensional words, power and control, those aren't who you are. But those, when you play in those games, they get very heavy. The gravity gets very heavy in those feelings and those thoughts. But when you can begin to step into this 5th dimensional space, and just be curious, pondering, how could this be possible? I'd like to see if this could work. Everything begins to come to you. You can't take your baggage with you on this journey. So now, in this space is where time starts to get rather fascinating. There's another application of time. In this space of observing quietly and not moving away from yourself, it's as if your intuition kicks in at a certain level, and something comes up, you begin to perceive it, and this internal guidance system starts to say, this isn't quite in balance, or this is a good thing. This feels good. This doesn't feel quite as good. Or you begin to have a sense of this internal guidance system that says appropriate and inappropriate. Almost a simple yes or no type of answer. In that space, in that present time moment, you begin to see out in front of you. It's as if you start to see something that's going to happen in 2 weeks. You also begin to see something that is happening to you again. So this nature of how many times have you said to yourself, God, this happened to me before. When am I going to learn, or whatever it may be? How do I keep recreating this situation? This space of being in present time, and it's called circular time. It's as if you have had experiences in the past, you've created a set of habits, you have a set of beliefs, you follow similar patterns. They don't always come up in the same size and colors and people and events and places, but I'm doing this again. As you get into that present time space of observing and allowing, you start to find that I know what's going to happen if I do this again. If I choose this choice, I'm going to have this experience. And so here, in this aspect of circular time, you begin to get to a place where you can choose kind of a different timeline, a different opportunity, a different experience. And it's really just how you say yes or no, or you ask a better question. Now, again, this sounds like, oh, that's interesting. But what I'm pointing you to is the process of how do you step out of these spaces of worry and insecurity, and I'm not okay, and I need somebody else to validate me. Because in that space, that third dimensional space, these 3 waves that are now beginning to move through you, 2 of these waves are disengaging, meaning they are all about unraveling those patterns that you've hidden away, where you've embarrassed yourself, or you're uncertain, or you're hoping this doesn't happen to me again. These waves are all about bringing that to the surface. You can't take your baggage with you. So the third wave is very much, if you can get into a space of allowing and not arguing and just simply say it's leaving, that third wave very quickly is smooth, it's calm, it's soothing, it just moves away the baggage. But the average person walking on the street gets upset when their status quo gets interrupted. They get upset when their little universe has something new, a change comes into it. One of the things that you're going to see, particularly in this year of 2017, very much in year 2018, is disruption. You're always seeing it. Look at the United States and look at the election that just occurred and the nature of the transition that's occurring. A lot of edges, a lot of people off balance. The whole world is off balance. How do we deal with this situation? It's not either a good situation or a bad situation, but it's a disruptive situation. It's disrupting the status quo. And many hope it's going to all work out quite well. Others have a lot of doubt about it working out. And so you have this confusion. Most of the confusion, most of the energy you're feeling, most of the turmoil you're feeling, if you could get into present time in that 4th and 5th layer, particularly 5th layer where you can stand and observe, you would realize that 95% of what's going on in the turmoil and the transition has absolutely nothing to do with you. Nothing to do with you at all. What you're really feeling right now, to a great extent, is that collective consciousness of those who play in the third dimension, those who are very concerned about their status quo not getting interrupted. They are beginning to go into fear and panic. And that fear and panic isn't yours, but it's pushing on the edge of your energy field. For many of you that don't have tools, don't have a rose that defines the edge of your aura as an example of a tool, don't have a good sense of grounding, don't have a good sense of the center of your head, don't know how to perceive your reality without putting your finger in the light socket of the reality, this is going to be a disruptive environment in the next couple of years. So having an understanding of tools and management of yourself, but particularly understanding how this time works, is going to be quite an asset. So present time with a lean in the fourth layer, fourth dimension, present time with an observation in a quiet space without the lean, without the need, without the wanting, and then just observing and allowing it to come to you, you're going to begin to see this circular time piece kicking in. A lot of things that you've done in the past will represent themselves. And your ability to observe it and then choose a different choice is actually going to become amusing as you begin to master it. Now there's a couple of other aspects of time that all play into this experience. When you begin to play in this fifth dimensional space, and particularly with the assistance of these three waves of light that are coming in, I'm going to talk a lot about this over this next number of months. These three waves of light are disruptive, but they are also very opening, they're loosening, they're providing opportunities. They come with many opportunities that are not in your awareness to date. Much of what you're going to start to find is a loosening of the edges of things. You're going to find that your spiritual abilities, your psychic abilities, if you want to call them that, are going to start to turn on. Part of it that's also going to be interesting is you're going to begin to start to perceive in a way that is going to surprise you. You're going to have a knowingness of something, but you don't know how you have that knowingness. You're going to have sensory perceptions of things, but you can't make sense of them. You can't put them in words. For example, sensory perceptions, there is between 3 and 6 new colors that will be presented in these three waves of light. Very refined, very sophisticated, very interesting light. And what happens when you start to see them? You're going to say, I see this color, and well, tell me about it. You don't have words to describe what you're seeing. So explaining it to the external world is going to be, in many feelings and perception levels, kind of odd, because you can't. But if you can stay in this present time observation space, allowing things to come to you, you're going to start to find that, I don't know how to express this, but this is what it feels like. This is what this color feels like. And this is what I'm aware of that goes on within the color. Now, color is not just the paint on the wall. Color is context, it's consciousness, it is information, it is applications. And so you're going to begin to have a complete new awareness of some of these aspects as these waves come in. But if you're locked into the fear and the worry and my status quo is getting interrupted, you will have these awarenesses moving through you. They will possibly create an uncomfortableness because it's just something else I don't know. But if you can stand in present time and allow and observe without a need, you're going to start to find some very interesting aspects of opportunity. There is another aspect of present time as you get deeper into that level of fifth dimensional consciousness, where you have certainty about yourself, you have poise, you have a sense of observing. Now in Mastering Alchemy, You move through a lot of that and then build that living light body and engage it. Those of you who are playing in that space, which are many of you listening and many of you who completed this piece, your ability to perceive these sensory perceptions I'm talking about are absolutely going to be remarkable. Not only are you going to be able to perceive, there's a couple of other things that will happen in that space. There is another aspect of time that is called simultaneous time. Now, many people have an intellectual illusion about what simultaneous time is about, and that's what it is, pretty much an intellectual illusion, because to perceive it at the level I'm going to point you to, the wiring is not in place in the body. The brain is shut down in those places of perception. In that living light body, that brain begins to be completely changed around, altering the molecules, changing the chemical secretions, altering the hormones, beginning to have a very different perception of what's available is kind of what's really required to perceive this simultaneous time. Now, if I keep it simple, simultaneous time, some people would say, oh, I can see my past lives and my future lives. Well, there really aren't past lives and future lives in this context. But what you can do in simultaneous time, because you are in a space of observing and choosing from a conscious intention, is you can begin to draw the best of those lifetimes, best of those levels of awareness. It's like all of a sudden you find this tremendously exciting library or video collection of what's possible. As you begin to put your attention point on that's what's possible, you're now beginning to draw from multiple realms of consciousness. And I'll step back and explain a little bit there in a minute. But you begin to draw from realms of consciousness. Now, right now, particularly third dimensional reality, they're not even approachable. You don't have any sense of even looking there. It's not even a desire to go there. Fourth dimension, you begin to have choice. Fifth dimension, you begin to have a certainty about yourself and that aspect of using time to perceive a reality. It begins to open up quite a bit. That multidimensional realms, above, fifth and above, in this space of understanding quiet perception, everything coming to you, and allowing this awareness of understanding that time actually isn't even called time in terms of simultaneous time. Your ability to stand in the center of the sphere and draw from any point in the sphere by having an attention or attention on an intention. Real fundamental stuff. You're going to begin to have opportunities to choose. Now, one of the first things that is becoming available, and many of you are starting to notice your dream space is more active. Some are seeing uncomfortable dreams, some are seeing lucid dreams, but the piece in the dream space that I'm going to point to is not the nature of the dream you first step into, is that as you are in these dreams, this other realm of consciousness, it also operates in different rules. You see somebody from the past and somebody from the future, and they're standing there at the same time. It's like no big deal. That's kind of how it is. You can change your attention point, and you're in one location, and all of a sudden you're having the same conversation, but you're in a completely different location. There's no barriers. There's no parameters that create limitation of perception. But for those of you who are playing Mastering Alchemy particularly, I'm talking to, as you begin to master yourself and stand in this present time perspective of present time in that fifth dimensional space of well-being, respect, dignity, appreciation, certainty, what you can begin to experience in that sleep space is you start to recognize that you can alter the dream. You first begin to recognize, I'm in a dream, and I am awake or I'm conscious in the dream. The next thing that happens is you begin to say, I'm not in agreement with how this dream is unfolding. And then you begin to rearrange the dream. As you begin to play more at rearranging the dream, you're going to start to find that you can not only rearrange the dream, the lines, remember I said a minute ago about the rainbow and the color of the lines more or less blending? Same thing with the astral sleep space and the awake walking around space. Wherever there was a definition in the past, the definition is going away. And so you're going to be able to start to be aware in that dream space and change the dream. You are also going to begin to find that what you might have called in the past as daydreaming or spacing out is going to start to happen more often. But as you daydream and space out and you bring your attention back to where you are, you're going to realize you were creating something. And so how the mechanics of this is going to work is going to be kind of fascinating, because as you go into your sleep space, you're going to begin to start creating changes. And you're going to figure out that I can rearrange a future present time moment, meaning next week or tomorrow, in my awake space. Now I said another way, you're going to basically have a dream about your awake space. You're going to change the configuration of the dream. You're going to start to get successful at it, and you're going to begin to change the configuration of the dream and apply it into the wake space. And so when you go to that meeting is happening very differently than the meeting would have happened if you didn't orchestrate the result that you wished. Now, if this is done in a malicious manner, a greedy manner, a manner that has imposition on others, you aren't going to be able to stay in that space virtually at all. It's not that you get kicked out of the space, it's with those intentions you fall out of the space. But you're also going to start to realize in this present time changing structure that that little daydream you have in the daytime is something you also can create. And so you think the thoughts of what you would like to begin to have happen in your future. You put them into a construct in the astral sleep space. You step into them in the astral sleep space where the density, the walls, the physical third dimensional constructs don't apply. You rearrange your experience and you place it back into the place that you're going to step into in a minute. Now, many of you I've talked to you about creating the apple. This is the creating of the apple. I would like the apple. You've already created it in the astral space. You've thought it in the physical space, put it there, and now you walk into a place and begin to hold your hand out. This is not fantasy that I'm pointing your attention to. We are very interested that you begin to have an awareness outside of your five sensory perspective. We are very interested in having you begin to have an awareness outside of your preconceived notions of the limitations of your spiritual abilities like clairvoyance and clairaudience and telepathies and clairsentience. Those are sensory skill sets to be applied to your creative aspect in present time. Much of the limitations of the third dimension, the status quo, the fears, the worries, the anxieties, they no longer are acceptable, and they are being cleared away. There will be many that will argue for those limitations for quite some time. There is another whole aspect of this which we will start to talk about on Facebook. We will play in the program that we're going to be introducing called Mastering Alchemy Light over the next couple weeks. Seminars, webinars like this that have this kind of context to them. But in this space, there is a number of considerations that are going to allow you to make decisions very differently. There is a whole aspect of this fifth dimensional space you're going to begin to hear referred to as the new earth. There's in the spiritual world, there's a conception, a concept, a understanding, a belief, a hope, a dream that many have that this new earth, these two earths are unfolding. They are unfolding. There is an aspect of physicalness to a new earth that is also unfolding, but it's not going to unfold in terms of some planet appearing and you happen to be touched on the head with a magic wand and you get to go live there. It doesn't work that way. It works from the standpoint of this fifth dimensional space very much is the new earth. Respect, dignity, appreciation, well-being, co-creation, admiration, and nurturing, assisting, kindness, gratitude. All those words, you know those words. You'll even speak them, but do you live them? And see, it's in creating that living word, being those living words, that your opportunity to step into these aspects of choice in time and using time to create the environment you wish to create is what's going to become very, very helpful to you. Many of you who've stepped into that space of that living light body in the Mastering Alchemy work, we're going to talk about this going forward too. There's been a pause in this work. Those of you who over the last 2 years stepped into this, that pause put you into an extreme quietness, quieter than most of you have ever experienced. I know that was my experience. But that quietness wasn't quiet. It was all these realms of consciousness, but they don't speak in English, Spanish, French. The rational mind cannot understand what's going on in those spaces. And so as these new configurations of consciousness become made available, you're going to start to find that you are actually engaging, but it doesn't come in words, just like the colors. But those colors and those sounds that you don't hear, sounds aren't just hearing. These are massive creations of energy that are going to become very, very valuable. And one of the first steps in playing in this is that space of beginning to understand time and in present time creating that environment, that experience you wish to experience in the astral sleep space, managing your astral sleep space with intention to create a physical experience. The lines between the sleep space and the physical space are loosening. It's understanding and playing in that space with a clarity of what you're doing is going to open up sensory perceptions and awarenesses that you literally cannot imagine. And so this place where we are creating, as these three new waves come into motion, be real clear that walking around status quo, worry, fear, limitations, doubts are going to be very challenged. Those of you who can find this space of the basic tools of Mastering Alchemy, these are the basic tools of life, they're not Mastering Alchemies. These basic tools of defining your space, beginning to become discerning, allowing others to be wherever, whatever they're doing without engaging in it, because most of the time it has nothing to do with you. Learning how to manage your energy field from this perspective is going to allow you to create in that physical astral space. It's going to allow you to begin to walk through the seams of a tremendous amount of the noise. And it's going to allow you to begin to have awarenesses that are just going to be thoughts that you just randomly think somehow. But within a very short period of time, you begin to remember kind of where you came from. So we will talk more about this as we go forward. There's one more component of this, which I'm going to talk about over the next few weeks, particularly on Facebook. But there's one more component, and this is a place where many of you are anxious as this transition unfolds. Many of you are concerned and you're pointing to the Donald Trumps and you're pointing to the BritXs and you're pointing to the kind of the disruption and the people pulling in and the people grabbing a hold of their limitations and worried about their world being upset. And so they're getting more restrictive. One of the things that's happening to many of you as you feel that experience, you're feeling an experience that's not in the present moment. Oh, it's in the present moment. It's very real right now. But that's not what's driving the experience. You see, many of you hold a dream. And this dream was created a long time ago. And when you created it, and many created it, and it was a hope, and it was a wish, and it was a possibility for beauty and well-being, and all of those fifth dimensional words I just ran out. You created this in Atlantis. It didn't happen just overnight. It happened in many lifetimes. And it was a hope. And it became a dream. And it manifested. And it had many components to it. It had tremendous beauty. It was something that nurtured the earth out of the fall of consciousness that came about. But in this dream, in Atlantis, all you did was dream it. You started to put texture to it. You started to put life into it. You started to put hope and belief into it. But it wasn't manifest. And when Atlantis finally fell, you fell too. And the dream didn't happen. But now, you have had that dream all through this lifetime. You hold it. You wish it. It's natural to your well-being. You want to save humanity. You want to save the earth. That dream now is doable. That dream is in place. That dream is the new earth. That dream is going to manifest. That dream is all about you stepping into the dream. But what you're really feeling is the fact that in that Atlantean period, you got overwhelmed. You didn't survive. You did not manifest the dream. And as you watch this transition beginning to unfold, you are remembering the dream, and the threat of the dream not coming into existence is something in your reality that is unacceptable. And so there's that fear, that worry, that off-balances, that anxiety, that really feeling of dislike for what's going on. The dream has happened. The dream is available. The dream is right there to step into, and I just described the mechanisms of stepping into the dream and physically experiencing them. If your attention is in the worry about the dream, please stop worrying. Bring your attention to that present time moment, that space where you begin to be in charge of you, commanding your presence. There's a certainty, a capableness, a seniority that says, this is who I am. It's in the dream. The mechanisms for experiencing the dream are now in place. So it's a matter of, how do you choose? How do you choose? Do you hold your finger in the light socket of fear and lack and limitation and doubt, abuse, greed, competition? Or do you begin to recognize, for the most part, it has nothing to do with you? So if nothing else, bring yourself over the next week, once or twice or 100 times, but once or twice, and just sit quietly without engaging in the world around you, and just ask yourself, how much of what's going on that's pushing against my space has anything to do with me? Does England moving away, Britain moving away from Europe, have anything to do with you? Does many of the things that are going on in the new appointments in the United States have anything to do with you? For the most part, no, nothing. But the amount of time that's being devoted to worrying about it is just holding on to the slowness, present time in third dimension. If you can get into that fourth dimensional space and choose, and then step into the space where you don't lean into the choice, worry about the choice, you're going to start to find things come to you. So time is a very important mechanism. It's not in the context that most of us think about or ever put any time into. But you're going to find that time drives everything. And if you can begin to recognize that you can structure time, you can apply time, you can use it as an application, and particularly as you begin to get less and less baggage and more focus, the ability to start to create not only your reality, but manifesting the new earth from that sleep and present time walking around space, you're going to begin to create a reality for many to follow without the limitations. And they're going to just find themselves ultimately there in one way or another. But this is not a free ride. There is some assembly required. And this is the time to begin to make these choices. So let me stop there. Please go away and think about that when you do go away. But let me turn this over to Vanessa in a second and answer questions, because I told you things that are outside of your box for the most part. But let me just also point to, because I get to do this, is these tools that are taught in Mastering Alchemy are available. Level 1 is available anytime, and we just put level 1 on sale. So that's available at a very reasonable price. Level 2 starts in February, requires level 1, but starts in February. And that's all about building this sense of stepping away from the third dimension and knowing yourself. But there's a lot of opportunity that's being presented that's in excess to the tools that are currently provided. And so we're going to begin to enhance some of this information, some of this focus. We're going to begin to do it on Facebook. So for those of you who are interested in more of this, please sign up to the Mastering Alchemy Facebook page. But this is a place where extraordinary things are happening. But if you hold your attention in fear, extraordinary things are happening also. And those are the ones that are disruptive and absolutely unnecessary. So please contact us. We'll be happy to provide you with information. But the body of work is in level 1, level 2, and level 3. The how do I begin to build that living light body and know myself in these spaces that you're talking about here. Let me express my gratitude for playing. I love doing these, and we hope we get to play with you soon. We will do another one of these sessions next month, and in the meantime, go and have a lovely day, evening, wherever you are in the world. Blessings.